The following video contains content that some may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi everyone, how are we? You guys know I'm not done with this Jennifer Crumbley thing. Okay, first of all, I could care less if Jennifer Crumbley gets out of jail. Okay, let's just leave it at that. But what I'm upset about is the way the prosecution went about it. I put together some great clips for you guys that we're going to play here in a second. And then I'd like to touch on an article here from Neil Rubin out of the Detroit Free Press. And I think he words it very well here. Ethan Crumbley needed his mother's guidance, her understanding, her recognition that something was deeply wrong. What she gave him instead was a weapon. Regardless of the signs that her son was closed off, and there were definitely issues, and he was depressed, and he was angry, Jennifer Crumbley and her husband gave him access to a weapon anyway. Whether or not it was a Christmas present doesn't matter. He was a mentally fragile 15-year-old, and that's what does matter. A jury found Jennifer guilty on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter last February, and I wish I could believe she is haunted every night by thoughts of the 4 children from Oxford High School who lost their lives. Those kids that she could have saved by being at least a slightly better parent for just one morning alone. Throughout this regional ordeal, she is deemed resolutely self-absorbed and determined dislikable, which is why it's jarring to just suddenly see her as an almost sympathetic figure. For that, we can blame her prosecutors, whose pretrial actions prompted potentially catastrophic concerns from Judge Cheryl Matthews Friday during the hearing on Crumbley's appeal. And we can also credit Detroit Free Press reporter Tressa Baldus. It was Baldus who revealed in March that the prosecutors had offered proffer agreements to Oxford High counselor Sean Hopkins and former Dean of Students Nicholas Ejak. Those were the 2 individuals who met with the 3 Crumbleys 2 hours before Ethan began his attack. The agreements guaranteed that any statements made by Hopkins and Ejak in the proffer agreement would not be used against them. Jennifer Crumbley's appellate lawyer, Michael Desi, contended Friday morning that not telling the defense about agreements is grounds for a retrial or an acquittal, and Matthews was clearly displeased over the prosecutor's actions or lack of them. I don't know about you guys, but this judge, she was very she kind of has a laid back way about her, and it's just the way she is. It's nothing against her. She's not happy about what she's heard about what the prosecution did, but I can't say that this Desi guy really helped himself, the one that's doing the appeal for Jennifer Crumbley. Oh my gosh, he's over the top. It's like somebody says, "Oh, you need an attorney," and they send over like Jim Carrey in The Mask playing an attorney. It's just so it's very odd. Anyway, I'll keep going. And the latest thing that Tressa Baldus has found out is that there is a family connection between the chief assistant prosecutor, David Williams, and the executive producer of a Hulu documentary whose crew practically lived in the prosecutor's briefcases during the Crumbley's trial, which were supposedly blanketed by a gag order. It's true. They were there. I mean, just watch the documentary and you'll see how much they were there. We now know that before Crumbley and her husband, James, became the first parents in the United States held responsible for their child attacking a school, Williams did particularly gracious favors for his wife's cousin by marriage. Okay, so this producer is the chief assistant prosecutor, David Williams' wife's cousin by marriage. If that seems like a flimsy link, Cheryl Horner McDonough is someone with whom he is friendly and with whom he shares family occasions. When her documentary, Sins of the Parents, The Crumbley Trials, aired only 9 days after the Crumbleys were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison, Williams' concern was its timing, not its content. In an email to an ABC reporter, tracked down by Tressa Baldus, again of the Detroit Free Press, he wrote, During the filming, we were under the impression that the documentary would drop months after the verdicts and sentencings, not days. We were stunned to have the trailer drop on Good Morning America in Times Square less than 72 hours after the sentencing. So, Detroit Free Press consulted the National District Attorneys Association and asked, what are your thoughts of the behind the scenes access and the family tie? And the answer they got was, that's icky. And that wasn't even taking into consideration the PR campaign. Unable to make bond of $500,000 apiece after Ethan's rampage in November of 2021, his parents spent 2.5 years in jail before their convictions. The prosecutor's office, in the meantime, spent more than $100,000 on public relations teams, one local and one national. In the hours following the incident, the national firm posted, and this was on their website, identity was retained to manage and coordinate the media, shape positioning on the tragedy, crafting statements and messaging. As we found out, Judge Matthews was not swayed over her appeals attorney. She denied multiple claims, but the dispute over the proffer agreements remains very much in play, with a written ruling to come. Jennifer Crumbley remains an easy target for the public, and she's not an undeserving one. The day Ethan erupted, she tolerated a meeting with worried Oxford High staffers for all of 12 minutes before asking, "Are we done here?" She could have taken him home from school. She could have mentioned the weapon. Instead, the wheels of justice turned, and she wound up under the tires. The side deals, though, the image consultants, and the cozy relationship with a documentary team. She's still no one to feel sorry for, but the wheels of justice aren't supposed to drip with grease. Well-written documentary. I wish we could watch this Hulu thing together. Copyright.
I'm Karen McDonald, and I'm the Oakland County prosecutor. We want to keep our focus on the victims of this horrific tragedy.
Prosecutor McDonald, thank you for joining us this morning.
Such overwhelming evidence. I do want to point out these are merely allegations. They are innocent until proven guilty. And I am ethically bound only to release the facts that have already been made public in the swear to in open court.
As well, any chance the school could face charges?
That's has not been presented to our office. That's an investigative process that I'll leave to law enforcement. I can tell you that there is outrage in the community.
After Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald released internal agreements from her office with then Oxford Dean of Students Nick Ejak and school counselor Sean Hopkins, known as proffer letters, parents in Oxford started texting me their disgust. Tonight, they shared it with the school board.
On January 5th, 2022, just 36 days from the tragedy, Ejak and Hopkins were signing proffer letters with the Oakland County prosecutor, and while it did not officially promise anything, the action speaks volumes.
Hello, I'm Karen McDonald, your Oakland County prosecutor, and I'm running for re-election.
Any individual who had the opportunity to stop this tragedy should have done so.
In the end, McDonald is not charging anybody from Oxford schools.
Did Karen McDonald have an obligation to disclose these agreements with Ejak and Hopkins in court?
There's a line, and on one side of the line, you have to disclose. If you're a prosecutor who has got a witness up there testifying who you've given a deal to, immunity, a lighter sentence, you name it, you got to tell. Well, he says that Karen McDonald didn't do that, so she's on the other side of that line, but she's really close to the line. And the line is mighty thin.
We don't keep secrets. We don't hide anything. We follow the law. And any attempt to say anything else is offensive, and it's not right, and I'm not taking the bait.
She was kind of ambiguous during her news conference after the James Crumbley verdict when she was asked about potential charges against anybody at the school.
She clarified it tonight definitively, Devin. She said there will be no criminal charges against school personnel. She says her office has determined that the evidence doesn't support it.
What can you tell us about how the other students are doing? I saw there's a terrorism charge against the shooter as well.
There is, and that was charged because, we charged the shooter with first-degree murder, 4 counts, and 7 counts of assault with intent to murder it was preventable. and we need to send a message.
I want to understand the school role. It sounds like the school did the right thing, and if I'm mischaracterizing that, please correct me, but they saw the search on his phone for ammunition and they contacted the parents, and that's another piece of the evidence of the parents' indifference, or can you take me through that part of it?
I haven't reviewed all of the evidence and reports regarding what the school officials did and what they didn't. So I can't really comment in a way that would be appropriate. But I do know that there was a concern for the teachers in the classroom when they saw both of those things and brought it to administrative level, and parents were involved. But I do want to stress that in all of these players, the only two people who knew both that those two things occurred, the drawings, the very terrifying drawings that were clearly a threat of violence, and the ammunition search, the only two people who knew that and the accessibility of a weapon were Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley, mom and dad.
You've seen the drawings?
I have.
And they target individuals. They make it explicit what the intent was.
You cannot read and look at that drawing without being concerned. And it wasn't just the drawing, it was a worksheet that was passed out at the beginning of the class. And instead of completing the worksheet, those statements and drawings were on the review worksheet. I cannot believe this is the state in 2021 in the United States of America that we have kids afraid to go to school.
Well, my thoughts are that the prosecution engaged in a prosecution of cheat and deceit. They cheated and they engaged in deceit. They hired social media influencers who crafted media statements and narratives of what they wanted the case to be about. It was kept a secret. They used taxpayer money from a slush fund. They received $1 million budget to work this case. $1 million budget. Think about that. $1 million budget put up against a couple from the community with very little resources to defend themselves. It wasn't an equal playing field from the start, all right?
Fraud cures all that, doesn't it?
No, it does not. You can't cure what they accomplished through those media firms where they put out a very effective smear campaign, character assassinations of the Crumbleys. So I'm confident that the judge is going to consider the motions carefully. The prosecution violated the discovery rules. They violated the constitutional principles of Brady versus Maryland. They had an absolute duty to produce those agreements, and those agreements could have changed the outcome of the case if those witnesses and the jurors would have known that they were under the threat of prosecution from the time they stepped into this building until they left. I'm just getting started here.
It's been a long 2.5 years, there's no question. I feel a sense of relief on behalf of these parents, particularly, who have endured a lot of legal proceedings and 2 trials, a sentencing hearing, an actual sentencing, and it's been really rough. So naturally, we would hate for them to have to endure that and not to bring them any justice.
So we will be in the Court of Appeals soon if necessary.
The parents of those children feel very much like they want accountability. And that's very important to them, and I support that wholly.
Should those 2 school officials have been charged?
You know what? That's the prosecutor's decision. My only position is the jury should have known they were facing perhaps the potential of criminal prosecution.
It was a dirty pool by the prosecutor here.
Say it again?
Dirty pool.
I told you it was cheat and deceit. The goal here was cheat and deceit.
You know what, they might be. I don't see evidence, and I have been very clear and transparent about that. I think you might have even asked me that a day or 2 after, and many times after. I've been very clear. I don't see evidence that would lead to a criminal charge for anyone at the school. However, that case was never investigated fully and presented. The Attorney General is looking at that now. They may be, in fact, charged at some point. It will have zero effect on the convictions of Jennifer and James Crumbley.
I expect parents and everyone to have humanity and to step in and stop a potential tragedy.
Do you know at any point during these meetings with the counselors and the parents if there's any talks to reach out to the on-site SRO officer? with these concerns?
Whether they did or not, or
if there was talks to reach out to them, why they didn't, if there was concern enough to bring the parents in and to have these meetings.
I don't know. I don't think we have at this point full statements that I've reviewed.
A lot of, we've been here now for a few days and talked to law enforcement and sheriff people, and people are really angry at the school. I mean, obviously there's issues with the parents, but there is a lot of anger with the school. And I know it may not be your responsibility to address it, but since you're the first person in all these days to talk about this, what is your response to that?
I'd be angry too, and I am. But that doesn't mean that there's a criminal culpability. But yes, I'd be angry. I would be angry. I am angry. I'm angry as a mother. I'm angry as the prosecutor. I'm angry as a person that lives in this county. I'm angry. There were a lot of things that could have been so simple to prevent. And yes, there was a perfectly executed response, and he was apprehended immediately, and we have great law enforcement and good training. But I said before, 4 kids were murdered, and then 7 more injured. So yes, I think we should all be very angry.
To ask McDonald to once and for all explain why only the Crumbleys have been charged in this case, not the 2 school officials who also sent the shooter back to class with a gun in his backpack. Why weren't they charged?
You know what, they might be. I don't see evidence, and I have been very clear and transparent about that. I think you might have even asked me that a day or 2 after, and many times after. I've been very clear. I don't see evidence that would lead to a criminal charge for anyone at the school. However, that case was never investigated fully and presented. The Attorney General is looking at that now. They may be, in fact, charged at some point.
Happy to take questions.
Last night, the superintendent posted...
Go ahead, Mr. Chikat.
Last night, the superintendent posted a video and suggested that as a result of that meeting, they saw no reason to contact law enforcement, that there was no danger. Have you seen his video that was posted to YouTube last night? And is there any thought you can share on that based on what you said today?
I viewed portions of it and was briefed on the contents of the video.
Were there any missteps by the school? Should they have reported right away to law enforcement after seeing those images?
Any individual who had the opportunity to stop this tragedy should have done so. The question is, what did they know, and when did they know it?
Good evening. My name is Karen McDonald, and I'm the Oakland County prosecutor. This prosecution is important. The 3 prosecutions and convictions are critical. So I refuse to take a victory lap with these prosecutions. It will not bring back these kids. We have a lot more work to do. And I hope that this attention that you're focused on this case, one, I hope it is always about victims far after I leave this office, which I'm not planning on doing anytime soon. So I absolutely applaud these parents for saying what's true. One of these terrible events happens, and all we're talking about is the shooter or the people we're prosecuting.
Do you believe did the jury give any indication about what drove it home for them? Did they tell you anything, that you can share?
No, and we didn't ask. They've worked hard. It's been a long week. They're tired. So no, they didn't.
One
more question.
How many chances we'll see charges against any school officials?
We want to hold everyone accountable, but at this time, we just worked for two and a half years, and you were all had sideline view. It wasn't easy, so we're going to work with. I've made a commitment to these parents, and I'm going to keep it. And it really doesn't matter what letters after your name, and nobody cares about that. Most of all, me. I'm going to look at the facts and work with them to get the accountability they deserve.
Hello, I'm Karen McDonald, your Oakland County prosecutor, and I'm running for re-election.
Those internal documents go back to 2022, and they're what's known as proffer agreements.
These were deals between the prosecutor's office and the Oxford Dean of Students, Nicholas Ejak, and Oxford School's counselor, Sean Hopkins.
McDonald was the prosecutor in the case resulting from the 2021 deadly Oxford High School shooting. McDonald was successful in getting the parents of the shooter charged. It was a landmark case as Jennifer and James Crumbley became the first parents in a U.S. mass shooting to be convicted.
It's not easy to obtain a conviction on this sort of set of facts. It's a gross negligence standard for involuntary manslaughter in Michigan. There was not a wave of support or acceptance of the charges when they were announced. But I knew, looking at all the evidence that we had that is not released to the public, I knew that you don't get to walk away from that sort of egregious behavior when it was reasonably foreseeable that your kid was going to hurt himself or somebody else.
If you could give the prosecutor in Georgia one tip, one word of advice, what would it be?
Boy, that's a hard question. Do the right thing and have courage.
When reelected, I will continue to work tirelessly to keep our kids and our families safe. It's been a challenging 4 years in Oakland County. The tragedy that occurred in Oxford, we should never see again. And while it's very important to hold the people accountable, and we did so successfully with the first ever conviction of terrorism in a school shooting and the first ever conviction of 2 parents for their role in why that tragedy played out. I proudly serve as your prosecutor, and remember, my name is on the ballot and I'm up for re-election. Thank you.
Did you notice that anytime that they asked about the school officials or anything about the school, her words didn't come as smoothly as the other times that she was answering questions? Look, I'm not against what happened. I'm not against that Jennifer and James Crumbley could have stopped this from happening and they're now serving time for it. I'm fine with that. I just feel like what they've accomplished here has a huge stain on it. And now they're looking at an appeal, which actually has some substance to it from these findings. So I wanted to put that together so you guys could kind of get a bird's eye. And I'd love to get your comments, and I'd love to hear what you guys think the victims in this case feel about all of this. I mean, we've heard from some of the parents at the school. They still feel like there's some things off. Should we continue to focus on something like this and bring to light some unethical behavior? Because I think at the end of the day, that's probably all it's going to end up boiling down to. Or do we just swipe this one under the rug? Because if we swipe it under the rug and we continue to swipe it under the rug, at some point in time, there's going to be a trial where we feel like someone's being done wrongly, and we're going to be in this situation again. I wouldn't want to be up against this prosecution, not because I feel like they're excellent lawyers, and I'm not saying they're not. I just don't trust their tactics. Unless something comes up with the appeal, this will probably be my last video on this. See, this is where the politics part gets into someone instead of doing your job, you're more worried about a political campaign. What levels will you stoop to get the job done to help your political campaign? Do you guys think that this is a politician, or do you think this is a prosecuting attorney? Or do you think it's a little bit of both? I always feel like when you put politics in the mix, it really muddies the water. So anyway, I appreciate you guys listening to me vent about this one. I will see you all in the next one. Take care. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.